Page 48, Pathétique Sonata Theme. This is the main melody from the second movement of Beethoven's Pathétique Sonata. It's a beautiful melody, very well known. Pretty much every piano student at one time or another will play some arrangement of this. It's a beautiful melody. And this is a nice arrangement. I'd like to point out a few things, starting with the right hand. This arrangement is written in the key of G major. It's got one sharp, so all the F's are sharped. And there are accidentals, we gotta watch them too. 4/4 time, just a lot of counting, and there's a few 16th notes in there. We'll talk about those, but for the most part it's just 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and stuff. Simple enough, just half notes. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. And the fingering in the first line is fine. But second line, first measure, I recommend on the C sharp A, you do a 2-5 and then a 1. This way I can connect everything with the fingers. And then a 3-4. Here it's easier, I think, if you use third finger on the B, the 16th notes. So you get fifth finger, because that lets me go ahead and use second finger on the G sharp more easily. If I use their fingering, I gotta reach down, and that's okay. If you'd rather reach down, that's too. If you want to play it with the thumb, the G sharp, there's nothing wrong with it. I don't do it if I don't have to, and I don't have to. So I'm suggesting that if you put fifth finger on that, it makes it easier to reach the G sharp with second finger. And then fourth finger for the C on the last line on page 48. And then the eighth notes is 3, 2, 1. And then their fingering. There. And then the last three notes there at the bottom, that's a triplet. So it's 4 and instead of 1 and 2 and 3 and, now it's 4 and. And I recommend the fingering, they want you to do this. And then at the top, third finger. Yeah, no. Finger the triplet, 1, 2, 4, and then 5 here. This is a chord, and that's the fingering for it, so why not just use that? And then you can scrunch up and put your second finger on the A, and then fifth finger. And then third finger on the C. So we're doing a lot of moving around here, like a spider crawling on things, and that's typical of piano playing, so that's what we're doing. Second line is similar to what we had on page 48. 2-5 on the here. And then you finger the rest of the page like we did over on page 48. And then at the top of page 50, we have a different melodic theme. It's in there, and here the melody is in the right hand here. So you're here, and their fingering is fine here. Remember, it's fourth finger on the G. You just have to watch the counting. Well, the eighth notes in the left hand will help you, because you can see how the notes line up in the right hand to the left hand. And so if you keep the eighth notes steady in the left hand, it'll help you with the rhythm in the right hand. So third line down. I'm recommending, well, let's go back one. It's second line, second measure. You're here, and then here, and then the third line down. I recommend a fifth finger on that half note. You played it with the third finger on the eighth note and then the half note here, because it makes it easier to reach down on the E. And now we have this mess coming up. First off, forget the rhythm, just get the notes and the fingering down. So starting with a 2-4, and then that second measure, 2, 1, 5 on the F sharp, and then it's coming down the scale, cross over to the third finger on the A, and then little finger on the B, and I recommend second finger on the E, the last note, rather than thumb. That way I don't have to cross over the thumb. And now I'm in the position to go on. So you work out the fingering and the notes on that, and then you can go back and put it in rhythm. Because it was you're doing 1 and 2 and, This has to be 1 E and a 2 E and a. It's twice as fast. So at the beginning of the line, on the third line, 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. See, those are on the end of 4. 3 E and a 4 E and a. And then this is 1 E and it's tied. 1 E and a 2 E and. Or just take out the tie. 1 E and a 2 E and a. Like so. 1 E and a 2 E and a. And then put the tie back in if you can get that. 1 E and a 2 E and a. And then it's just all 16th notes. And then after that we come back into civilization with 8th notes. And that's fine. Last line on page 50 here. And then reach up, you got rest, just reach up. And here I'm recommending for the last measure of that line you do 3 2 3 2 3 2. This is a sequence going down, a descending sequence. So it's 3 2 3 2 3 2 3 2 and 2 3 here. You can do their fingering. You don't have to put a thumb on that black key here. And this is normal, and these are 2-note slurs, down, up, down, up, down, up, and we need to hear the slurs too. So it's like so. Going on, second line, this is like it was at the beginning. And so forth, and then the rest of it is like you've already had before. Now, for the left hand. It starts out okay, you just have a bunch of broken chords, but again you're going to be moving around quite a bit. I recommend a 2-3 for the F sharp, or a 2-4 is actually. So the first measure, 4 on the D, and then 2-4, and then the second measure for the second D. Here, I recommend 5th finger immediately. Just put it on. You're going to need it there on the next beat anyway, so just put it there now. So you can use their fingering on the third line. Second measure, you're down here. And for that, the last 4 8th notes in that measure, I'm recommending a 1 2 1 on the 1 2. They're saying a 2 3 1. That's okay, you can do that. I just find it easier to go ahead and start with thumb immediately. That's what we want, because we want to, this is a very legato piece. We want to feel that with the fingers. Never mind the pedal, the fingers got to do it. Then on page 49, it's very similar to page 48. Pretty much on all the fingering and everything you're going to run into. The only difference would be at the bottom. Last line, the first measure's okay. Then you have an 8th rest, so you have a 1 and 2 and 3 rest. So you got to make sure you lift up for the rest. We need to hear those. On page 50, for these B's, I recommend a 1 2 1 2, and these are just separated here. We want to hear the natural accents here, and it starts off with a rest and then a B, and so you want a little bit of an accent on each beat. Because when you subdivide beats in a measure, then the beats themselves get natural accents. That's why I'm saying there's all kinds of natural accents. It depends on the situation. So here, the first B is fine. The second B needs to be a little more. We need to know it's a 1 1 that. So it would help you to do that, to use the thumb on the beat, then start with second finger. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and don't have to if you can remember index finger is the beat. You can start with the thumb. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and it's up to you. It's a personal thing. And then the second measure is, that's fine, a D sharp, F sharp, B, and then here next line your F sharp, A, D sharp. This is, if your finger's too fat for that, you gotta do that. But even that, you're sticking your hand in there. Now, so if you can, go ahead and do the 3-5-1. Second measure, treble clef, A, E, G, and A sharp. And then third line down, you have a B, a D, and an F sharp. And how you finger that is up to you. You want to use 5-3-1 or 5-4-2. Because you got our 8th rest to move your hand down. Then the last chord in that third line is an A, C sharp, G. And then here. How you finger it is up to you. I can do a 5-4-1 and then a 2-3 on that connected, or I can finger it the way they're doing it. You decide how you want to finger it. But once you decide, stick with that fingering. Don't be going back and forth. Second measure, the 4th line, this is a 2-note slur again, similar to what we had in the right hand. Now we got it in the left, and I'm going to use a 2-3, 2-3, 2-3 on these. So it's 2-3, it's down, up, down, up. Bottom line, and for the last 2 8th notes, I recommend a 2-3, because that puts you in position for the chord. So that last line is here. Top of page 51, again, 2-note slurs, 2-3, 2-3. And going up is 3-2-3-2. It's still the same 2 fingers. And then you're back to your original melody like you had at the beginning. So you work out the left hand very carefully. And then now you've worked out the right hand. Then you attempt to go put them together, because tricky things can happen. So it's at the take this really super slow, you know. Keep in mind you got 16th notes coming up. So here, the tendency is to want to play this a little faster, and then you'll slow down when it gets hard. It all has to be the same speed, even when you're practicing it. So this is where a metronome comes in handy, if you can stay with a metronome. If you can, play the right hand louder than the left. It's a little tricky in the third line down, first measure, because the A is needed by both hands. So you got to get off the A a little early in the left hand so you can have it in the right. So here, right here. So get off a little early. The pedal will connect it for us. Last line, first measure, the staccatos with a slur, just disconnect the notes. It's a long staccato. And for the 16th notes, these are a little shorter staccato because there's no slur. That curved line is not a slur, it's indicating the triplet. And it's very light. I'll get to the pedal in a minute, don't worry about it. And it's similar to what we had before, except the right hand, you're an octave higher here, because at the beginning you were here. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same. At the bottom of page 49, again, these staccatos with the slur, just disconnect the notes. So at the beginning of that line, you're here. And then the rest, and then the last note on page 49 is a thumb or second finger. It's up to you which you use, because you have an 8th rest at the top of page 50 when you play that right hand. And then you do these, and again, the staccato with a slur, you disconnect these. No staccato here. Connect these as best you can. Connect them. these two note slurs need to come out. Now the right hand gets it. Bring out the two note slurs. Now the left hand gets it. It's like two voices singing a duet here. Remember, in the right hand we have a half rest, so when you get to that double P, the D, lift up the right hand. Then you're back to the original melody you had on page 48. And it works the same way from that point on, pretty much. At the very end there, the last line, you're down here. Rest. I don't know what these staccatos are doing here, but I don't know about staccato. I'd make it a long staccato. You want to end gently. You don't want to. I don't want to end with a short staccato. It's out of character for this piece. So it's here, and then the last note in the left hand is 8 VA underage, so you're coming down here. And with a fermata, you hold it on for a while. So you bring out the melody. It's kind of going back and forth, but the right hand has it most of the time. Now the pedal. I have some suggestions to make on the pedal. Again, I think they're just simplifying the pedal for you, so they've got you using a lot of overlapping pedal, which is going to blur things up a bit. So I want to complicate the pedaling just a little bit. At the beginning, the overlapping pedal is fine, and we're changing it with the harmony, and you can see when the chords change, the pedal changes along with it. So at the beginning, it's sort of changing every 2 beats. And we'll push the notes down first and then the pedal. We're going to use this overlapping or legato pedaling throughout. See the pedal changes there in the second measure? So here, yeah, second line is like every beat. See, we don't want to blur this up anymore, but we do want the legato and we do want the overtones. So we are pedaling this. So the second measure, the first line again. Bottom line, we did not pedal part of that because we don't want to smear it, and we want the disconnected. We want to hear that. And we don't need you're coming down now, you're settling down. We don't need all the overtones. And I disagree here on using the pedal at the end of the page. I would not use pedal here at all. I would not pedal again until the top of page 49. I want to hear these staccatos in the triplets. We want to hear that. So the last measure of page 48 going on is this way. Then legato pedal again. No pedaling there toward the end. We're settling down now, getting rid of the overtones and the extra sound. We want to hear the rests. Top of page 50 here. Now keep in mind the last note on page 49 was an 8th note B here. That's important because the two together is actually the melody. So when you're playing this, it's got to sound like there, like one hand played both of them, and I'll get back to that in a minute. So it's here at the top of page 50, you're here. I recommend leaving out the pedal on the first measure because I'd like to hear those disconnected B's, and then we add pedal on the second measure because it's starting to build some intensity, and we're going to use pedal to help us build that intensity. So we're going to start out simple without pedal here. And then when you get to the chords, you can start adding pedal. Because you're crescendoing. You don't have to pedal at the end of the third line at all if you don't want to. If you can connect that, you don't need the pedal on the last one. You can if you want to. You just lift the pedal up every 2 16th notes. Fourth line down, don't pedal that line. We want it clean. So it's here. We want to hear the rest. And then the melody is the 8th notes, and it's going between the hands. It's here. That's the melody, and that's what we want to hear. It's got to sound like one hand played it all, even though both. And no pedal on any of that. We want to hear those 2-note slurs. And there's a crescendo here. Don't crescendo a lot, just a little bit. And you can put pedal down on the first beat of the last line on the quarter note, but lift it up on beat 2. We want to hear an 8th rest there. And don't pedal any more of that line. But this is a little louder than the previous because you just crescendoed up a little bit. Not much, just a little. Now you're going to crescendo it more. And then here they're saying soft. I disagree with that, but that's what they're saying. So and then decrescendo down to a pianissimo. And you can put a little retard in there if you want. I do. It's not in the music, but it's an interpretive thing. And then we start the melody again, gentle. Now we can pedal again. Line, you're only pedaling the first couple of beats. Rest. Long staccatos. If you want to pedal the half note at the end to add the overtones, you can do that. Just a little bit and let it die away. Let it die away gently.